Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, depending on where everybody is. I know that the team from Dundee, it is good evening, so thank you guys for working late today. We do appreciate you doing that. My name is Jonathan Yakasha. I'm the Senior Manager for Open Innovation Programs with Tech Connect. I'll be your host, moderator, and discussing all things Tech Connect. Thank you all for joining us today. Do appreciate it. We're here today to talk about advancements in subsurface detection and inspection technologies. That's the project that we are currently running with Dundee. So for all of our attendees, this is intended to be an informational session for you. I'm going to cover some details about the project. As I said, we're going to have representatives from Dundee here as well. Please use the Q&A box to submit your questions at any point during today's session. We're going to go through your questions in just a little while, and we're going to go through as many questions as we've got from you. So please feel free to start submitting your questions as you have them. Don't wait until the Q&A portion actually begins. And if you think of a question outside of today's session, don't worry. I've got some information there for you as well so that you can get that additional information that you're looking for. Okay? All right, with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So first off, the screen that you see right now gives you a great overview about the project. Basically, what is Dundee looking for? They're looking for technologies that will increase the speed of exploration at current and future mining sites with little to no disturbance of the surface landscape. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could go about doing that. Hardware, software, combination of both. Hardware, different kinds of sensor platforms would be great. Hyperspectral imaging, passive and active source seismic surveys, all that sort of great stuff. So, Marshall, which screen are you trying to see bigger? I've got the full screen up right here, so I'm not sure what is a little bit difficult for you to see. The information that is on the screen is available on the project page, so if on your screen it's a little bit difficult to see that, you may want to take a look at the project page and see some of the information there.
I can see it at full screen, Jonathan. It may be the size of your screen, Marshall, or I don't know how you're coming across the webinar, but it looks full screen to be here.
Great, thanks, Laura. In terms of software, software for QC, for analysis, correlation, mapping, prediction. If you can incorporate AI and ML technologies into that, that would be fantastic. I think the main takeaway from this screen here is that there are a lot of different possible technological avenues for engaging with Dundee. It's not just simply hardware or software, lots of different ways for you to participate. So let's talk some timeline, because obviously dates are going to be important. First and foremost, the next big date that you need to be aware of is June 29th, 2023. If I'm not mistaken, that is a Thursday. That is the submission deadline for you to submit your response for this project. Go to the project page, and I'll have the URL for you in just a little bit. Take a look at the information there. That is where you're going to access the response form. And we've got more information about the response form as well. You will be notified if you're going to be selected as a finalist for the virtual pitch event in July. And the virtual pitch event will take place in August, and direct engagement will begin with Dundee also in August. So that's your kind of rough timeline. Not looking at years and years to find out if you're going to be engaging with Dundee, talking a couple of months. Marshall, I see your question about IP, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Eligibility and technical maturity. It's open to all individuals and organizations in all locations. There is no geographic restrictions here in place. If you work in a private sector company, if you work in an academic lab, you are equally eligible to participate in this challenge. Welcome to both of them. And there's no minimum technical maturity. Obviously, technologies that are a little bit closer to commercialization have a certain appeal, but if you've got an earlier stage technology that isn't quite commercialized yet, but has some really great performance that you can deliver, that is still going to be of interest to the team at Dundee. So let's talk resources when it comes to building your response. First and foremost, if you've signed up for this challenge, hopefully you've taken a look at the project page. The URL is right here on your screen for you. It's at techconnectventures.com. If you check out the sprints, you'll be able to find that one. Take a look at it. It's got a ton of great information for you about the project. And like I said, it also has the access point for the response form. When it comes to building your response, there's a couple of different resources for you that I want to bring to your attention. First and foremost, there is the Word doc template. It replicates all of the questions that are in the online form. Using that document, that template, is not required, but if you are working with a number of individuals to prepare your response, that document can be very effective in terms of collaborating with them. You can work on your section, send it off to your teammate, and they can input their section as well. Now, if you choose to use that template, you're still going to need to submit your response form online, but that is a resource for you for considering what you want to put into your response. Second, there is the PowerPoint template. If you want to include supplementary information with your response, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can use that PowerPoint template to do that. So if you've got pictures of your technology, pictures of the performance of your technology, additional information that you want the team from Dundee to review, you can use that PowerPoint document. As I said, it's not required, but it is available for you. Also on the response form page, you will find the response preparation guide. That's a brief guide that I put together that takes you through how to build an engaging and effective response. One of the most common questions that I get as a program manager is, can you share what a good response looks like? And it's a highly unique thing. Just because a response was good for one particular technology in one particular project from one particular respondent doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to translate to another project for another technology for a different reviewer. With that in mind, I built that response preparation guide to take you through what kinds of information you might want to include, how you want to build your response. You might want to take a look at that if you're brand new to responding to innovation projects. Lastly, and I hope it's a useful resource for you, is my email address. So if you have questions between now and the end of the project, reach out to me. Let me know what your questions are. I want to hear from you. I want to be able to help you with your participation in this project. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Email address is right there on the screen. It's jjakischa@techconnect.org. Reach out to me and let me know what questions that you've got. More than happy to answer those questions if I can. And lastly, again, just going to hype on the URL for the project page. Go there, take a look at it, bookmark it if you need to. That's where you're going to submit your response form. So let's talk a little bit about responses. 4 main things to keep in mind when it comes to building your response. First and foremost, non-confidential information only. That goes for the online form. That goes for any supplementary information that you provide in your response. It has to be non-confidential in nature. The reason being, nobody can be accused of misusing or misappropriating your IP if none has changed hands, okay? Let me just stress that again, non-confidential information only. It may seem like I'm harping on that a lot, but it is for a reason. I've been doing these kind of projects for the better part of a decade, and almost without fail, in a majority of projects, there's at least 1 or 2 people who will submit confidential information as part of their response. So much so that my very first responsibility once the project closes is to read through and skim through everything to make sure that we haven't gotten confidential information. If you inadvertently do that, then I've got to track you down and chase you down and get a non-confidential version of the information that you have submitted. That slows things down for you, that slows things down for everybody else. And if you happen to miss that, we may not be able to include your information with the delivery to the client team. And I definitely don't want that to happen. So when it comes to building your response, please, please, please keep it at a non-confidential level. Second, engaging information, okay? You are telling a story to the client team. You are telling them a story about your company, your technology, the kind of performance that your technology can achieve. You're telling them a story about why you want to work with them. So tell them a really good story. I like to describe projects like this with a certain analogy. And the analogy is you're at a dinner party. You are meeting this person, this team for the very first time, and they've asked you what you do. You want to tell them a really interesting and engaging summary of what it is that you do so that they ask you, wow, tell me more. Tell me more about what it is that you do. And that applies here because you want the Dundee team to read through your information and say, wow, this is really cool. I want to know more about what it is that they do. I want to know more about how their technology fits in with what we do. Okay, so you've got to tell them a really great, engaging story. High level information. Um, very often, people who are new to responding to innovation projects think that they need to build a fully customized, fully detailed A to Z technical proposal that covers everything that they are going to do when it comes to engaging with the client. And that's not really the case. A number of years ago, was working on a project and somebody responded with, and I'm not joking, a 250-page master's thesis as an attachment. And I guarantee you it wasn't read because it was not the right kind of information that needed to be presented at that time, okay? You are presenting a high-level summary of your technology. Talk about what kind of performance your technology could achieve. Don't tell us how you do it, okay? Keep it at that high level. The last bullet point that I will share here is it's a combination of technical and business. It's not exclusively one versus the other. I have read responses where the submitter is a highly educated PhD and they are so far into the technical weeds that it's hard to see how their business wants to engage with the client. Conversely, I've read responses that focus more on the business engagement than they do the technical engagement. And both are important, but if you only focus on one, you're not really serving yourself very well. If you're only focusing on the business, you've not given any of the technical information, it's due diligence for the client team to understand what it is that you can do, okay? So when you are building your response, weigh both of those concerns and make sure you do justice to both of them. Give them the technical information that they're looking for. Give them the business information that they're looking for, okay? One of the things that you will see in the response form is there's a section where you can talk about how you want to engage with Dundee. That's a business consideration right there. How do you want to work with them? Do you want to license the technology? Is it a joint development thing? Tell them how you want to work with them. Keep both of those in mind when you are building your response. Some frequently asked questions. One of the most common one is, what's Tech Connect's role in the project? Our role really is as a technology matchmaker. That is what we do. We work with the client to figure out all the great details of the project. And then we reach out to people like you who are potentially interested in engaging with the client. And we facilitate those introductions. Once we make those introductions, then we step out of the process and you are able to engage directly with the client to figure out all those great important relational details with each other. The establishment of confidentiality agreements, questions around IP and compensation and duration. Like I said, the nature of the relationship. All of those questions take place directly between the solver and the client team, and TechConnect does not take any role in those discussions. We are not going to be sitting over your shoulder saying you really need to sign a contract with our client. Obviously, we hope it works out, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. We are not going to pressure you in any way. Possible collaboration types. Like I said, that is really going to depend on what kind of organization you are, where your technology is. For instance, an academic lab may be more interested in contract research rather than technology licensing. A private company may be more interested in technology licensing than contract research. So it's all going to depend on how you want to engage with Dundee. As I said, there is a blank in the response form that will allow you to talk about how you want to work with them. So give that some consideration. Tell them what you would be interested in. Is it possible to get an NDA before submitting? Short answer is no. The longer answer is because all information has to be at a non-confidential level, there isn't a need for an NDA. We're looking for you to tell the Dundee team the kinds of performance that your technology could achieve without telling us how your technology achieves that performance, okay? When it comes to establishing a confidentiality agreement, that will happen, but that will happen later on in the process. Last FAQ that we'll cover is there a cost to participate? No. For those of you that are responding to the project, and quite frankly, I hope that all of you do, there is no cost to respond to the project, okay? So let's go ahead and I'm going to take a couple seconds here to grab a drink of water because I've been talking for 17 minutes straight. And those of you that know me know that I do that quite frequently. And then we'll get to your questions. We've also got representatives from the Dundee team on the call as well. So they are able to chime in if you have any questions that might be better directed to them. With that in mind, I'm going to grab my drink of water and then we'll get right to the questions. If you have questions, please go ahead and continue to submit them, because we're going to take the rest of our time to go through the questions that you might have. All right, so question would be, who would own the intellectual property presented or developed here? If you're presenting the information if you're referring to the information presented in your response, you retain that IP. Because you have not given any confidential information, you haven't surrendered any IP. When it comes to any IP that may be generated as a result of your collaboration with Dundee, the ownership, that would be something that you would be able to discuss with the team at Dundee. That would definitely be one of those questions that would come up later on during direct engagement with them. And again, it would depend on who's bringing what to the table, who's using it longer term, all those sorts of topics. So it would be a question that would be decided later on. The question is, what does engagement mean? A contract or discussion about potential contracts? At this point, it would mean both. You're going to have, if you respond to the project, you may be selected for the virtual pitch event, okay? If you are selected for the virtual pitch event, you'll have an opportunity to talk directly to the team at Dundee. They'll have the opportunity to ask questions from you. After the virtual pitch event, Dundee will use that information to decide who they would like to engage with. TechConnect will make those introductions, and at that point, you as the respondent and the Dundee team will be able to talk directly with one another to figure out how you might be able to work together. Obviously, the ideal outcome of those discussions is a contract, but that may not happen. You may get to talking directly to one another and realize that it's just simply not a good fit. But that engagement will get you that possibility of a contract. And again, ideally, lead to that contract. Okay, let's see. Question about ITAR restricted information. Yeah, keep your information at that non-confidential level. If there is information that you have that is ITAR restricted, you may want to reference the fact that you do have that ITAR restricted information, but don't share that information at this particular stage. Keep it at a non-confidential level. Okay. Francis and the team from Dundee, we have a question for you. And I think I know the answer here. The question is, what duty cycle are you looking for? Do you want a quick read in seconds or minutes, or a detailed high signal to noise ratio determination that might take weeks, something in the middle, all of the above? I'm guessing that any kind of technology that gets you better site awareness is beneficial, whether it's a quick initial pass or something that takes a little bit more time to develop.
Yeah, thanks for it's a good question. It's Francis here, Innovation Director at Dundee. I also have Kunchal Kunchev, who's one of the technical leads. He's the senior geophysicist on the call. So I'll pass the question to him as well. But from the innovation perspective, from supporting the exploration team, we're interested in looking at all kinds of technology from short-term cycles through to long-term. So we're using fairly up-to-date technology as it is, but we're really trying to push the envelope and see what additional technologies are available and which ones we can bring on. So from our perspective, we're open to all kinds of technology. And Kunchal, whether or not you have any comments about specific cycle times that you're more interested, please.
Well, where was webcam?
We're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep. Is the webcam works? I think because it's a new. Okay. Anyway, the question is a bit tricky, but because the second part was the long observation to deal with the signal noise ratio, and that's even it sounds long observation to deal with the signal noise ratio. I think it's a good option too, because of, I guess that is the word is going here for the passive methods, which is it's a passive seismics or magnetotellurics, which is I personally believe has a future for development, and that's compared with the methods that were using the active sources, which has its room in the business, but considering all these constraints that we have considering all the ESG constraints that we have using the active, for example, in field of seismics, using the vibrators, explosives, which gives us better resolution than the passive seismics, which needs more time to get data to observe, but resolution is lower, but still may help us.
So basically, it depends on what the use case of a particular technology is in terms of a quick duty cycle versus a longer duty cycle. Something that is a rather short duty cycle could be beneficial if it makes sense for that particular application. Something with a longer duty cycle might be beneficial if it gives you lots of really good information and it makes sense for a particular use case. Yeah?
Sure. And
okay.
The survey or technology should be tailored very carefully, considering the specifics of other targets. I mean.
Okay. Great. To our attendees, we're going to take the rest of our time to answer questions. So if you've got questions that you want to put to either myself or the team from Dundee, please go ahead and submit your questions. I don't want to take any more time than is necessary. So if you've exhausted all your questions, don't worry about it. And we've got our next one coming in here. Francis, before we get to our next question, is there any other information from the Dundee perspective that you think our attendees would benefit from knowing, either about your operations or just the project in general?
Yeah, so I can only really speak generally again, and I'll ask Kuncho to step in for some more specifics. But we're not limiting ourselves in terms of just technology. We're also looking at how we can integrate new processes across the board in terms of exploration. So this specific we'll call it technology scan is more on the this non-destructive or non-disturbing technologies. So we're really casting wide about anything that can increase the decision-making process. So it's not just about the scanners themselves, it's also about how we get the data, how we process the data. So that's something to think about as well when you're developing your submission. So this is focused more on the technology side, but we're also looking at if you have any supplementary information about data integration and these kinds of things. It's very important for us to understand that as well. Kuncho, did you have anything else?
Not really to add on that, except that again, we need a smart technology which is will be able to work on the complicated environmental safety conditions, because we're operating here in Europe, and not only Europe, it's globally these issues. Importance of the ESG issues increase, and we need really safe, environmental friendly technologies to do a best possible job.
Okay, great. We've got a couple more questions in. Right. What if the technology is already available in the marketplace? Are you only looking for new technologies or also for competitive offers? Francis, I think maybe this one would be best for you. My sense is that you guys are wide open when it comes to technical maturity. Obviously, something that is available commercially has a certain appeal because more likely to be able to put it into the field sooner, but a earlier stage technology would still be useful, especially if it brings some new performance to your sites.
Mm-hmm. What I can say for sure is our team, the exploration guys, are constantly looking for new technologies. We have good working relationships with quite a lot of the more advanced technology companies. So we are very well open for off the shelf, as you call it, but it really depends on the technology. In a lot of cases, the sort of the newer, more developed technologies we're already either looking at or already using. So really, we will consider any and all. And if it's something that we haven't considered before, we haven't come across, and it's ready to go, then we definitely won't rule it out. But one of the reasons why we approached Tech Connect was to widen our view in terms of which industries we're approaching. So not just specifically focused on exploration industry partners, but also trying to see if there are adjacent industries with adjacent technology that could be adapted, or newer technologies that could be developed, which we could pick up and run with. So unfortunately, it depends on the technology, but we're definitely not ruling it out. We're trying to, again, just to restate, we're trying to look for those newer technologies, if possible, on the understanding that we're actually we believe that we're looking quite hard at the industry and what's available now. So definitely not ruling it out.
Okay. Really good question here. Question is, how much can we touch the surface? Probes on the ground, probes stuck into the ground, rovers moving over the surface. Based on our conversations and what's on the project page, I think that you guys are open to really any kind of contact with the surface or no contact with the surface. depending on the nature of the technology. Would that be fair to say?
I'm going to, Kuncha, I'll let you take this one.
Sorry, I can take this one.
Sure.
Oh, okay. As possible minimum contact, but of course we can touch the surface, and we can fly, which is not touching the surface or using the remote sensing, but we can fly with the drone or helicopters. But yes, we can touch the surface, but the impact should be minimal, and the risk should be minimal as well.
Okay. All right. One of our next questions, assuming that the right technology is found and selected, what is the timing for the trial of the technology? Broadly speaking, you're going to be directly talking with the team from Dundee in August of this year, if you are selected through the pitch event. As far as the timing for the trial, I think that's going to depend on how those discussions with the team from Dundee go. Obviously, they would like to have something sooner rather than later, but a promising technology that takes a little bit earlier, or a little bit longer rather, to get to that trial could still be interesting. Francis, anything that you want to add there?
Not really. No, that's
Okay.
we're looking to be reasonably aggressive on it, but we do have our own internal policies and procedures that we'll need to go through, which is part of the initial negotiations, and it really depends on the maturity. In terms of timing for trial, yeah, it depends on a lot, but if there is something that we're seriously considering, we're open to aggressively pursuing it. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so if you start talking with a respondent that you've identified that you want to engage with in, say, August of this year, would it be reasonable to say that Q1, Q2, 2024 is at least a possibility for starting a trial?
2024.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, we would have to check it against what the application is and where we can actually trial it and these kinds of things. But yeah, I'd say that's a possibility. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next one. Will there be one technology selected or multiple? And I think the short answer to that is it will depend. If a submitter comes in and says that they have great new sensing technology combined with a new software that helps to map and visualize and predict targets of interest, well, then maybe that could be a single point of engagement. If, however, there is a hardware provider who has a really interesting hardware, but they don't really have the software for the analysis, and a software company comes in and they've got a really great software platform that can pair with lots of different sensors, there may be multiple individual organizations that would be selected. Francis, would you say that that would be the case?
Yeah, definitely. So we're not restricting. We're looking. There was a comment that you made earlier. It depends in terms of negotiations and these kinds of things. It depends a bit on compatibility, maturity, the technical details about what it is actually what it's capable of picking up and these kinds of things. So if there's more than one, then we'll definitely look hard at them. Yeah.
Okay. Francis, stay on the line here. This is another question that I think I'll pass over to you. Is there funding available to pay for any trial? Are you able to speak to that now, or is that more of a to be determined type of question?
Fundamentally, there is, but it is a restricted budget, so it really has to fall within the definitions of what we can put through that particular budget. So that's not a very accurate answer. But again, it depends on the trials. It depends on the site. And we have multiple sites around the world. So it depends on how we access that funding. So the short answer is there is potentially some funding for those trials, but it would depend on the size, the scope, and things like the risk associated with that, and these kinds of things. So potentially there is.
Okay. Our next question, again for you, Francis. Are you going to be at Tech Connect World next week? And if so, are you going to be visiting the expo hall to talk to people at their booths? And I believe the answer is yes, you are.
Yeah, I'll be there, and I'll be scaring people in the booths for sure.
Okay, great. I will be doing the same thing. I walk around the expo hall and I look for organizations that have interesting technology so that I can tap them on the shoulder later and say, hey, I saw you at the conference and I think you would be a great participant for this particular project. So I will be doing that as well. Okay, that we've got a little bit more time here. If you all have additional questions that you want to ask, either to myself or the team from Dundee, if there aren't any additional questions, I will start to wrap everything up with some additional reminders for you all. Give you just a second here to submit any questions. When it comes to building your response, be enthusiastic about who you are, what you do, and why you do it. A big component of my work is reading through responses and attending pitch events, either in person or virtually. And you can tell the organizations that have a great deal of enthusiasm for their work, for their technology, because it comes across. Whether it's written on a page or in a presentation, it comes across. Be enthusiastic. Tell a great story about your technology and make the team from Dundee want to learn more. Have them get done reading your response and say, this is fantastic. We need to engage this team, okay? I haven't seen any additional questions come in. I'm gonna go ahead and start with some final reminders. If you do have questions, go ahead and continue to submit them in and we'll try to get to them if we can. If we can't, we'll answer them offline. And if it's a question that makes sense for everybody, we'll send it out to everybody. If it is something that is highly particular just to you, we will just answer it just to you. So, reminders, as I said, first really big one, June 29th, 2023. Start working on your submission now. Go to the project page, take a look at the response form, take a look at the questions that are asked there. Start thinking about how you might build an engaging response, because that is really what you need to do. You need to build an engaging response to get the team from Dundee to say, this is somebody we need to deal with, okay? Make sure you get it in by the end of the day on the 29th. When it comes to time zones, don't worry so much about that. As long as it's submitted on the 29th, you're good. Visit techconnectventures.com, click on sprints to find the project page. That is where you're going to access all of those resources that I mentioned, the Word document, the PowerPoint template, and the resource guide, or excuse me, the response preparation guide. That is where you're going to access all of those. Lastly, if you have questions outside of today's webinar, and I imagine that some of you might, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is right there on the screen, jakisha@techconnect.org. Please feel free to send me a question. I can't really review your submission before you submit it, but if you have questions about types of information to include, that sort of thing, how to build an interesting response, go ahead and reach out and ask the question. Right. Did get a question here. Can you provide a possible timeline for what happens after the pitch? After the pitch, if you are selected for direct engagement with the team from Dundee, you will be put in contact with the team from Dundee. You will get an email that says, hey, congratulations, representative of the Acme Corporation. You've been selected by the team from Dundee. These are the representatives from the team from Dundee. You're going to be able to talk directly to them to figure out what that timeline is going to look like. You're going to be able to talk with them to, again, establish those confidentiality agreements to figure out how you're going to work together, duration, compensation, all that sort of good stuff. You're going to start talking about that. Now, if you guys are really, really well aligned and the negotiations go really quickly, you might get into a contract relatively fast. If there is a little bit more information that is needed, if your technology is a bit earlier stage, they may ask for some additional information about your technology. It is really going to depend on the nature of the technology, the nature of how you want to work with the team from Dundee, the nature of its maturity, all that sort of good stuff. So as far as a more detailed timeline, it really will depend on all of those factors. So I hope that answers that question. We've got a little bit of time left here. That is all the information that I needed to share with you all today. Team from Dundee, is there anything that you all would like to add for the attendees, or have we covered everything?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I didn't really have anything more to add other than, yeah, looking forward to seeing the submissions.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. All right, so to our attendees, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day today to sign in for this webinar. Hopefully this was good information for you, and quite honestly, hopefully all of you want to participate in this program. I really enjoy reading all of the submissions that come in for the projects that I do. That is one of the biggest reasons why I do this line of work. So I hope you are all interested in participating with Dundee. To the representatives from Dundee, thank you for taking time out of your evening to sign in for this webinar. We appreciate you guys coming in and sharing information with the attendees. Thank you all once again. Have a great rest of your day. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.